Yeah, from 99. He's in the industrial area. Looks like he's on a pavement. Stand by.
Hello people and sheeple, PINACI news. Right, welcome to part 3. While I'm sat here in the court cells, let's just have a quick recap. First, I'm told to have a jolly nice day recording outside the police station.
That being the case, you have a jolly nice day filming outside here.
Followed by being unlawfully arrested using section 50 of the Police Reform Act, because I won't give them my name due to the fact that journalism is not antisocial behaviour, especially if I'm stood over the other side of the street minding my own business.
So at the moment you're under arrest on section 50 of the Police Reform Act, saying to provide the details and required to do so by the police constable. Yeah. You don't have to say anything anything to do say they will give them evidence.
And then I spend 18 hours in a police cell in agony because they're refusing all of my medication, followed by a quick trip to the hospital to be provided the medication that's already been prescribed, which they have in their hand in an evidence bag. And now I'm waiting in the court cells, looking forward to talking to the magistrate. However, after about 20 minutes sat in the cells at the magistrate's court, a Serco jailer comes to visit me to tell me that I might be getting released, and she's just off to double check, and 10 minutes later returns with this sheet of paper from the court's legal advisor that says, "To Serco jailers, please note, the case against no name, that's me, has been withdrawn. I do not know the reason, but Natalie Angel, prosecuting, requested it. The court could not refuse it, therefore it was withdrawn. I do not know of any other matters involving this. Can't WHMC, West Hampshire Magistrates Court, to detain him?" So, after receiving this piece of paper stating the prosecution are having none of it, I'm swiftly given all my property back and kicked out the side entrance of the courthouse. So here I am, just been kicked out the back door of Southampton Magistrates Court. Kicked out the back. The court decided within half an hour of being here to withdraw all the charges and kick me out the back pretty damn quick. So I'm about to make my way around the front to go and see the solicitor before I head off home after my ordeal for public photography. Just emptying out my belongings out of their evidence bags with the money. Well, just about to leave Southampton Magistrates Court and work my way home after I get some lunch. The saga will continue. Well, I eventually get myself home and have a conversation with my duty solicitor, who said he had a conversation with the prosecutor explaining what all this was about, where she found out that the police decided to bypass contacting the CPS because they just wanted me prosecuted and were just counting on the magistrate to slap me with a bloody great big fine. Well, that backfired in their face. After pondering about what happened and what they just did to me, I decided I'm going to draft an email that explains what happened to me along with links to the videos, because I've decided I'm going to sue them. Not for the money, because I don't want any of the money, and I stated this in my email draft that I sent off to various actions against police solicitors, that any compensation awarded would be publicly donated to charity. Because contrary to what a lot of you YouTube trolls believe, I don't run my channel for money. I don't monetize my videos. I make all my content for free in my spare time, and I don't go out looking for confrontation so I can sue the police. But in this case, they just piss me off, and I wanted my day in court to get this bullshit Section 50 of the Police Reform Act being used against people unlawfully cleared up. I now send off my email to various solicitors, and it's not long before I start getting phone calls. One of which was from a Mr. Terence Channer of Scott Moncrief and Associates Limited, who then also sent me an email to confirm that further to our telephone conversation today, I am sorry you appear to be the victim of an unlawful arrest. And it's at this time that all the questionnaires, the forms and the conversations and the paperwork begins. And trust me, when you're suing the police, there's a hell of a lot of it. I then get a few more phone calls from other solicitor firms who are politely informed that somebody has already agreed to take on my case, and then start getting down to the nitty-gritty of suing the police. But it's not as easy as I thought, because it also depends on what solicitor you get and how good they are. So I'm going to cut a long story short, and it's a very long story. But it turned out the solicitor who took on my case wasn't really interested or bothered about what happened to me. He seemed only interested in what he thinks he can get money for. So he's not interested in any of the abuse that happened to me in the police cells. He's not bothered about anything that happened at the hospital. He would rarely answer my emails. I would have to chase him up for updates using WhatsApp, because that way you know whether he's read it or not. And he still rarely answered any of my questions, acknowledged any of the paperwork that I would send him. It almost felt as if he took on my case on a no-win, no-fee basis, and it was an afterthought, and a case that he was doing in his spare time. And he ended up leaving everything to the last minute, all the time. He would ring me up every now and then when he needed information, or to inform me that the time limit for bringing human rights violations to court is about to pass. But don't worry about that, he said. That's not worth much anyway. And he'll still add them to the claim, which he did later, which is why the police solicitor was pulling him up on it, because you can't bring a claim for something that's had its time limit expired. Anyway, he wants to sue them for wrongful arrest, unlawful detention and malicious prosecution, because we're now not bothering about any of the human rights violations because he left it too late, even though he knew before the time was up that the time was nearly up. He still chose to leave it too late. So he puts in the letter before claim, which the police deny all liability, which surprised him. So he turned around and said to me, I think we should take them to court and get a jury trial. Okay, I said. So now we've got another time limit, and that's the time limit to submit all the papers with the intention of taking them to court. And have a guess what? He left that to the last minute too. And I mean the last minute. Literally. He was ringing me up every half an hour on a Sunday evening, 8-9 o'clock at night, asking for all sorts of information because he's in a rush to get all his paperwork filed and put in an envelope to get posted off. And he has to get this done by midday Monday, the next day. It was at this stage that I told him that I was a bit disappointed with him leaving everything to the last minute. So he rang me up to kind of complain about my complaint and told me that he knows what he's doing. He's been doing this for a very long time and that this is how it's done. We had a few conversations where he would blow his own trumpet about some of his successful cases. But anyway, everything taking ages, months here, months there between conversations, and eventually the police would come back with their skeleton argument and where they wanted the malicious part struck off. So he would contact his KC friend, who provided him with a little bit of case law regarding how he worded the malicious prosecution part and how he worded who was involved in it. And then eventually I'm told that the first court case will be on the 2nd of December 2022. But I'm not invited. This is just where their solicitors meet my solicitor and the judge, and they all sit in a room and talk about what's what. And at that meeting, the police solicitors handed over a 140-page document consisting of case law about malicious prosecution and how to prove it. And their argument was that PC Johnson, the arresting officer, all he has to say is that he reasonably believed I was committing antisocial behaviour, and that there is no way to get inside his head to understand whether he thought otherwise, because you can't prove what he was thinking, apparently. And it was at this stage my solicitor, who has already paid out a few £100 so far, has started to get scared, because throughout this whole ordeal the police solicitors have been very aggressive with him, which he would tell me about over the phone, how he couldn't believe how they was even talking to him in an aggressive manner, and that how the police were prepared to do anything to prevent me from winning this case. They were prepared to spend whatever it costs of taxpayers' money to defend this case, no matter what. But I was expecting my day in court, where I could produce all of my evidence of what they did, including perverting the course of justice with their fake false statements, which would have turned into perjury if they swore an oath on that in court. I wanted all this, but their barrister somehow convinced my solicitor that he needs to drop this case, and I believe that they told him that this could end up costing him tens of thousands of pounds, which obviously my solicitor is not prepared to pay, because he is used to the police settling out of court, which he admitted to me over the phone. They usually settle, he said. I'm shocked and surprised that they won't settle. Then normally they settle the first day you go to court, but not in this case. They're prepared to do anything, no matter the cost. And then my solicitor admits to me that he had a really long conversation with their barrister at this court meeting, but I don't know what that conversation was about. And also in this conversation with my solicitor, he sounds like he's now on their side. He's telling me that, well, I was recording the police station, and it would have been different if I was recording myself or my family. Well, he's changed his tune. He wasn't talking like this at the beginning of this case, but the case did get adjourned for about another month's time. But before that case came around, I get a phone call from my solicitor, who says, now, because we can't prove that the arresting officer was being malicious when I was being arrested for not giving him my name, that it would be hard to prove that the arrest was unlawful, because we can't prove what was in his head and what he was thinking. So I said, well, with that logic, any police officer could say anything regarding reasonable suspicion, and because we can't get inside his head to believe otherwise, then they must always have reasonable suspicion every time they say it. Nah. My solicitor has just chickened out and is scared that he might lose, because in my opinion he's been told they are prepared to do anything and spend anything to defend this case. And then eventually Hampshire Police send him a letter, which is a drop hands offer, which states, without prejudice save as to costs. Dear Sir, we refer to the previous hearing in these proceedings, at which we understand the claimant's position was that he had not anticipated many of the legal issues raised in the defendant's skeleton argument. That's Hampshire Police argument. We consider those legal issues to be fundamental in the crux of this claim. As you are aware, it has now been ordered that the hearing should be relisted with a 3-hour time estimate, inevitably increasing significantly the costs involved, in addition to the costs of the adjourned hearing. As a pragmatic resolution, we confirm that should your client wish at this stage to discontinue his proceedings, we would be prepared to consent to that on terms that each side bear their own costs to date. Please take your client's instructions before reverting to us. Yours faithfully, Officer of the Force Solicitor. Civil litigation. So that's that. My solicitor bottled it. because he's used to settling out of court. So in another conversation with my solicitor after all this, I said to him, why did you bother taking on my case in the first place? And his reply was that the reason he is so successful is because he's prepared to take chances. And he took a chance on my case, and that nobody else would have even took it on, according to him. But there were 2 other solicitor firms who phoned me up. So there were other people willing to take on this case. So obviously it's just more trumpet blowing on his behalf. Because at the beginning of all this saga, he was convinced that my arrest was unlawful and we were going to sue him, take them to court and have a jury trial, which turns out was just him blowing smoke. But anyway, I haven't lost anything, apart from a bit of sleep maybe. Got stressed out a few times with all the paperwork and everything else involved. Financially, this hasn't cost me a penny, and I didn't want a penny either. That wasn't the whole point of this. I wanted my day in court to prove that what I was doing was not antisocial, and that for the police to abuse Section 50 of the Police Reform Act because of an amateur journalist who was standing across the street recording a police station as a backdrop to his story was just wrong and an unlawful abuse of power. All because I dare stand there and stand up for my rights. My right not to provide my name and address. The final conversation with my solicitor was that he was still going to try and get some compensation because I was handcuffed when I was taken to hospital, which he thought was unreasonable. Personally, I just think he's clutching at straws to try and get some kind of compensation to cover his costs. But I've not heard from him since, and that's litigation, he said. So there you go, people. Pick the bones out of that and leave a comment about what your thoughts are. I know many of you thought there was going to be a big massive payday, and to be honest, I think there should have been, because that was just pure abuse, which I believe I have shown. Anyway, that was my arrest saga and the pure abuse of power from the people we employ to protect us. But who protects us from them?
Yeah, well, what the hell you know about it, Capone? What are you in for?
Me? Lawyer, fuck me.
And it's gone right at the end there.
You got a full change, right?
Put that camera down, or we will tase you.
I know.